Start real quickly with the payroll, which was 44,855, payroll taxes of 10,639, accounts payable of $47,151. It's also, it's like another actual, an added check to that, so 47,151 plus $359 for an AP total of $47,511. So if I can get a motion to approve the payroll, that would be appreciated.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll send this around for signature. And then the second thing is the consent agenda, which is the rec manifest and building permits. A motion to accept those.
Moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we reopen last week's consent agenda?
With regard to,
We approved the minutes that we hadn't seen.
I think we crossed it out.
Did we?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember which one got crossed out.
yeah. So now that we've taken care of that business, we're here for the putting together some sort of policy or definition for our solid waste. And I did come to learn from speaking with Laura Spector Morgan, Town Council, that this would require a warrant if we wanted to do it by way of bylaw or ordinance at town meeting. So whatever we do here today would be either towards that or, you know, some sort of policy at this point. But the only way to enforce an actual bylaw or ordinance at this point would be to do it by way of special town meeting. I did ask Attorney Morgan to put together a timeline, which was just an exemplar, if you will, timeline with some draft dates as to how that would work. So it is potentially feasible. It does require, you know, a number of notice and publishing in the newspaper and of the like. So I'll take comment about how people want to proceed. You know, my thought is we could either proceed by way of just a general policy that we could put together, or in the alternative, and then, you know, have that policy put on town warrant for town meeting next March, or to go through this special town meeting process. So any thoughts? I figured that was kind of a preliminary issue before we get to the substance.
Yep.
My thought would be that we don't expend money on a special town meeting, and then we just put together a procedure and wait till March for an ordinance.
I have a question. How is, and I don't know if Laura answered this, do you know why we have to do it this way as opposed to the way we've done other ordinances in the past?
So, yeah, I did ask Attorney Morgan about that. So if you're referring to, for example, hawkers and peddlers, so specifically in the hawkers and peddlers statute, it authorizes the select board to make the ordinance, whereas this subject matter where you're dealing with solid waste, it speaks to the town being authorized to make the ordinance. And the way that Attorney Morgan interpreted that, and I believe it is the proper interpretation, is town means town meeting, and apparently that authorization of select board versus town can change from subject to subject depending on the statute and which what you're dealing with specifically. That was my understanding from her.
Okay. Just when I had Googled it, I found a document where Stratum had done it just by having 2 public readings and then an affirmative vote by the select board. So I wasn't sure if we could bypass the town meeting part and just do it that way.
There is and again, I don't know how Stratum would have done it. There are, differences in terms of whether the select board could do so in terms of town size. And because we're under 10,000, I know Attorney Morgan had mentioned that that limits us in what we can do. So that may be a difference with regard to Stratum. Attorney Morgan also mentioned to me that there are some towns that have done things, and they may not have done things in the proper or legal manner either, but I can't really speak to Stratum specifically.
Yeah, I would say that I'd go along with Andy on this. I mean, I think that obviously we need to get this figured out as quickly as possible. And I think that, we sort of make a temporary fix and then bring it up at town meeting would be the right thing to do, I think.
Hearing then no objection unless you have one. I think the next subject would be, what do we want to do for a policy? I think we're looking at issues such as cart size, although I know we did speak to that at the last meeting. We're looking at issues involving residential and commercial, and we're also looking at issues that may involve some hardship. So if there are other issues that people want to put on the table, I'm open to how we can craft
The only other issue I
policy.
can think of would be if we're gonna allow somebody to purchase a bin from Casella
from Casella. Yeah.
at a yearly cost.
I just, for clarification, Casella owns the bins. Always. So what they would be purchasing would be basically their tip fees.
I thought the town owned the bins.
So the way he explained it last meeting was that if we left them, we still had the bins.
Yeah,
That's what I had heard as well.
yeah.
Because we pay for the bins in the first
As a matter of fact,
contract.
I asked him that, and he said that the bins have Brentwood on them, then not Casella. We own the bins, not Casella. Because
Okay.
we're purchasing them.
No, okay, that's not what the contract says. I guess.
Can you point? I have the contract out.
Number 4, page 4, for automated collection, Casella will provide 1 cart per household.
Where are you?
Page 4 in the middle.
Under waste containers?
Mhm.
Says, for automated collection, Casella will provide 1 cart per household for acceptable waste collection. Shall also provide dumpster containers at the following locations to be emptied on the schedule indicated during the term of the agreement. The cost of the dumpster container rental and collection is included in the acceptable waste collection cost.
So it doesn't say either way then.
Not
clarified.
Yeah, it's ambiguous, at least in my opinion. It doesn't say. But I think we do have Tony Belanja on record
Yeah.
as saying that they were owned by Brentwood.
I
We
don't-
can follow up with him. For
I don't know that Tony
clarification.
Belanger over.
I know, finds the company, I understand. I think we ought to get,
Right, if he was here, we could ask him.
Well, we can call him.
We can get an addendum to it. I mean, it's,
yeah. I think it's something to follow up on and make sure that that's, ultimately clarified. Also, where it provides 1 cart per household.
For trash.
Oh, that's trash, okay, gotcha.
So I think the first thing that we should do is figure out size, right? And then, do we know that? Did we figure that out last time?
So we took a 4-1 vote last time on cart size. And that was 60 trash, 90 recycling.
And then, if someone wants to purchase a bigger one, they can.
I think it was if somebody wants to purchase
An extra cart.
another one, they can.
Yeah.
But we also have to figure out if we want to make special exceptions to the 60-gallon size that they could get a 90 instead of the 60.
We
Mhm.
put in here, they define the carts as, not to be picky, 65 and
Oh,
95.
okay. 65 and 95?
That's what it's.
So it's 5 off each way.
Yeah.
At least I'm consistent.
Yeah, right. What about the notion of residential versus commercial? I know we had some comment from Bruce Stevens that he had said at some point in the remote past, there had been a decision that commercial would not be part of the garbage collection route.
And what do we determine commercial, right? Because there are people that work from home, have their own business at home. Is that a commercial? Is that commercial? You know, I mean, I would think it falls under the resident is there already. I don't think and if they want to purchase another barrel, they can.
Yeah, I think they can have the same that everyone else gets, and if they want more, then that's their choice, right?
That's what I think. But I agree.
So all businesses, like along 125, would each get a,
No, I don't think so. I think businesses should be on their own, to be honest with you. With most businesses, like myself, I have a dumpster.
right?
I pay for it. It's just part of doing business, I think.
There was also, I was talking to Tony about this last week. There are some, on 125, you have some businesses, but actually have rental units in them. So he actually had to go around and look to see if there's a business, they have an apartment on there. So
Mm-hmm.
you have that.
Well, like, I think the real estate office across from you has an apartment out back. It's a business in the front.
Party
Already in
pack.
the rear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those. I have an apartment on my property. I let my tenant use the dumpster. The tenant's kind of a pain in the neck, but I let him do it anyway.
Okay, so the question is for those hybrids,
You could probably get a cart.
what would be the,
Probably argue that.
what would be the rule for those hybrids?
I think that would fall, I'm sorry.
Well, I just wonder if we have the authority to deny certain parcels something that we're giving to the other ones, just because of what happens to be happening on them.
We just need to determine then who's eligible for it. I mean, I have no problem myself, you know, if they're a resident, give them trash, give them the thing, but we just need to determine who those are and how do we determine it? To go around to every single location?
I
What do
think
we
the
do?
easiest way is part of the special exception property is if you're denied a bin, but one of the provisions of the special exception would be a commercial business that houses a residential structure,
Mm-hmm.
they could apply for a special exemption
Mm-hmm.
and then be granted it after. That would be the easiest way, in my opinion,
I agree.
to deny it first and then grant it after.
By special exemption, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Unrelated to this, it is on page 1 under definitions, carts. Owned and provided by Casella at its sole cost and expense, so they will own them.
But he also did say last week that if we changed after the contract was done, that they don't go around and collect all the bins. They stay.
I hear what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And it looks like maybe he was incorrect.
Yeah,
as to the
we're just
in
gonna
his
have to.
contract,
Yeah, we're just
so-
gonna have to clarify it. That's all.
So I think we need, if, you know, what he's saying is true, then we want an addendum to the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should try to hold him to his word,
Absolutely.
so. But going back to a policy, so we're set, just so we're clear, we're set on the 65 and 95 as we discussed and voted on last week, I assume.
Personally, I think we should do 95s, but as I look around to other towns that do automated, trash is a 65.
Not, I mean, it's different in every town. I know Kingston has 295s. I guess if we pick 65 and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this isn't enough, can we change it?
No,
Mm-mm.
Why?
because the capital outlay's already been made on the barrels,
Who's capital outlay?
Casellas.
Castella is a worldwide company that has thousands and thousands of carts. They don't care.
Yes, they do, because these are gonna be engraved Brentwood.
I am not certain about that. I know that that's what Tony said, but
They said
I-
they had to
and-
order them for us.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I think that looking at the town, we have a lot of people that have, pretty healthy households. And I'm afraid that if we give a 65, I would prefer the 95. I'd rather have more and not need it than have less and need more.
Did Tony ever, so one of the questions that I had asked Tony was whether that would be a deviation in expense. And he seemed to suggest it wouldn't be, but he would check.
so the deviation expense wouldn't be for the carts. It would be for how much trash we're throwing away. It would be the tip fees.
The tip fee, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's going to be the same no matter what.
That's what he
size.
said, because he did say that it's based on the number of stops, and then, so you're picking up a barrel anyway. It
Right.
doesn't matter if but it's the tipping the weight.
Which we pay for anyways.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, we're going to have some discussion here. Yeah.
As long as you're gonna offer the opportunity.
Do you have new things that you haven't said before that you'd like to tell us? Or
So we're already going.
I, as a person, will decide whether my comment is worthy of being said.
okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, we'll get to public comment, Mark, but I just want to kind of fully air this. Yeah, no, yeah, not a problem.
And then obviously, depending on the cart sizes, you're gonna have less special exceptions.
In what sense?
Well, if you do a 95-gallon cart,
Right.
your special exceptions are gonna be less because you're not gonna have like house size. Like, do you have more than 4 people in your house? Because if
So-
you have more than 4 people in your house, you're probably gonna need a different cart. If you're already giving a 95, it shouldn't matter how many people are in your residence. If you need, well, at that
Yeah.
point, then you need to buy
Right.
another cart.
It would just be going down on the exception because
Correct.
some
You would
people
have-
might want a lesser cart.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really need to be, if you want a lesser cart, you want a lesser cart. Like, you don't need to prove anything to make that. My opinion, because it's costing the town less to do that.
Yeah, I would imagine that the elderly would want a smaller cart, for example, I mean, it's less for them to maneuver around, less weight and all that. And it's a shorter barrel as well, but.
So we need firm, absolute confirmation from Casella. Tony needs to be authorized to speak for Casella that the 95-gallon cart is not going to change our expense, other than, of course, the tipping fee, which we understand. But if there is no difference in expense, which is what he suggested at the last meeting. And I'm frankly also in favor of, the larger cart as well. Yes, for
Yes.
trash.
Yep,
I think we're already getting a larger cart for recycling.
we are, because it's every other week.
Correct.
Any other thoughts about that?
I think if we're gonna do that, we should include some sort of mechanism for people that know they don't want the bigger one, kind of like what you were saying. That they don't have to deal with getting the bigger one and trading it out for the smaller one.
Totally agree.
So
So
in
it's
in saying that, we need to have a plan for that we tell people how we're going to go about doing this, right? Do they come to the town, and how are they going to do it? We have to figure that out too.
I think they just drop them off, like they.
No. I mean, so if we're going to give everybody the 2 larger carts,
Mhm.
and somebody doesn't want the larger cart, what do?
Call Casella, would be my guess, and they would just drop off the other one the next time they come. I mean, I'm assuming for the first couple months, there's gonna be a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I mean, we'll put something out on the website, and then maybe if, we can say, if you don't want that, we can say, you'll have to do this, give people options, so.
I'm wondering, is there like a mailer that we can send
Well,
out?
that's what I was
to-
I
actually.
believe there is a mailer going out. And there's some, when they drop the
I'm
carts
gonna
off.
go see what a town mailer costs us to send out.
They,
Okay.
Because that would be my opinion, that we send something out to every taxpayer in town about what's happening, how to opt out, how, how to create a special exception, how to buy another barrel. Like, whatever we put together for our policy,
Mm-hmm.
that should go out to every home.
But we also want to make it very, I'm sorry,
Nope.
go ahead.
before Andy leaves, it's possible that Casella will do that for us.
Oh, they already said they were going to do that. for us.
So we
They
might
would-
not need to, like,
They would pay for the mailer?
yes, because once a year they update the file and everything else.
I thought that's what he said.
That might be what we could get for the
Can put
first
it on the
year.
website.
Hmm?
So we'll put it on the website,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Can you, we need also firm commitment from Casella whether or not they will send out that mailer, or whether or not that's something we need to do. Or we just take a
We
quick
also,
pause while Andy is
Yeah.
checking the cost.
and we also want to make sure that whatever we do put out, that we're not causing more of an issue. We want to keep it as simplistic as possible, and we don't want to make it so that every single person has their own choice, right? You
But
see what
they-
I'm saying?
But they will.
They will if they want if they want another barrel
Or a smaller one.
or a smaller one. Yeah. I guess it's just going to be a
Well, I guess,
shit show for a couple.
yep, I'm expecting that.
Okay, so why don't we just pause for a moment and wait for Andy? 'Cause I'd like him to be part of the discussion.
We all sing Kumbaya.
A lively crew.
Yeah, no.
No, we started on time. It is working.
Yep. I think we might have started a few minutes late.
I might have hit it when we stood up to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Did you find out any good information?
So it cost Daphne roughly between paper envelopes and postage $2,500 to send out a tax. She said if we printed postcards, it may be cheaper.
Okay.
Because then you wouldn't have the envelope, you wouldn't have the stock, you wouldn't have the paper cost. Postage is still 69 cents per household.
Tony confirms that Casella owns the carts.
Okay.
I just sent him an email.
Does he confirm that they'll send out the
I
letter?
just asked him.
All right. I think we have general agreement, though, on 95 and 95. We have.
And this is good because I'm getting it in writing.
What's that?
I'm getting it in writing.
Okay. We have, do you want to ask him, too, about the 95 not being an extra cost?
I can.
Mm.
No,
No, not an extra cost for.
tipping.
The barrel.
For the barrel.
The barrel itself.
Yeah. Yep.
So we have special exemptions if a business has a resident, moving down from 95 to 65, and also buying another barrel. Do we have a potential start date?
He said August 15th. Is when he'd like to, that is the start date.
So anything else in terms of procedure with regard to this? I mean, we're just putting together a procedure at this point.
Right.
Would bulky goods be part of this or no? I know we had talked about doing that a couple times a year.
Say that again?
I know we had talked about doing bulky good pickups a couple times a year, but I don't know if we want to actually put that in.
What is in the contract?
Just
Bulky
an
goods should
hourly
be
rate.
in- It should be in there. I thought I
It-
saw it.
It is, but that doesn't tell people what they should expect in terms of, we're gonna do this and,
Right.
We usually do it in April and then October or September, October.
uh-huh. Yep, but that's why I wasn't sure if we should put that in
All right.
our.
Bulk waste
Yes.
collection, once automated, this is on page 5, once automated acceptable waste collection begins, Casella will charge the town for bulk waste collection, frequency and scope of work to be determined. This will tell us a lot.
So yes,
Uh,
so they'll charge us bulky waste isn't part of the contract. So we can design the frequency or provide the address for the Raymond Disposal Center where they can deposit waste at so many cents per pound.
So I think one concern, as I understand it, is we have stickers that people are paying $5 for bulky waste, but that's not going to reflect the actual cost that we're paying in this contract.
The stickers will no longer be valid at this point because they can't take it with the truck. The trucks won't handle bulky goods anymore.
Okay, so there will be a menu, I'm presuming, of what the,
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
of what the costs will be for bulky items?
So Casella will give us, okay, they'll do a 1 day outside of trash pickup cost, or we can do like other towns do, and you bring your bulky waste to the highway shed on 1 day a year, and they pick it all up there. There's different options with different costs, like,
It should be a wash. My prior community, it was a wash. You know, mattresses were like 40 and box springs were a little cheaper. You shouldn't be ending up paying for that. You should pass the cost along to the residents. And we sold tickets for stickers at the office.
but it would only be good for whatever we decide is a bulky goods pickup day.
Right. And where, is it going to be curbside or is it going to be at the shed?
It can be curbside would be the easiest, but we would just have to charge appropriately.
So as part of this policy, then there'll be one bulky curbside pickup, if that's what I'm hearing some agreement on, with a menu price to be determined?
I wouldn't mind spring and fall, but
That's typically
Popular.
what I think happens spring and fall.
yeah.
It's popular.
Okay.
Like April and October or something, March and September, every 6 months, basically.
Yeah.
I think April's good. People starting to spring cleaning and all that stuff. March is still, you got some bad weather and whatnot to deal with.
April, October, for bulky pickup with a price to be determined for the cost.
Or they're welcome to drop off at the Raymond.
Or Raymond, yeah, well, you can always go to Raymond.
Right, but not everybody knows that.
At their own expense.
Right. But this would be at their own expense too.
Correct.
It's more convenient. It's in town.
Right. If you don't have a way to transport it, this is more convenient. If you don't want crap hanging out in your basement for 4 months.
All right, any other points?
I didn't know if it was worth, around the holidays, maybe like the beginning of January, putting an extra dumpster over at the shed that's just for cardboard. Just because that takes up a lot of space, and I know for us, typically, every other week recycling does not work around that time of year. And, cardboard is also one of the few things we can still get quite a lot of money for if it's clean.
I would say if Casella would provide it, we could have it there year round.
It would be lovely.
Why not? We have the room for it.
You know, and it would have to be only during transfer station hours anyways, if they're there to accept brush and the other stuff that they accept normally.
Mhm.
Because,
Town shed?
yes,
Yeah.
because they have hours that they accept brush, metal, stuff like that. So it, you know, you would have the same idea that you could dispose of cardboard.
You didn't have to, but if you wished to.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Dumpster in January or all year are we talking about?
I'm talking all year,
Year
but
would be good, yeah.
if they'll do it inside the contract cost,
We'll need to check on that. Get some confirmation.
It's possible that we would at least break even because we will get actual return because cardboard is one of the few things that we still get decent amount of money for.
For what we're.
we would
paying.
probably have to pay hauling, but which in turn would, I'm talking that they don't charge us to leave a dumpster at the town shed all
Oh,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
The least they could do with this contract.
Build a roof.
With that. Okay. I'm open to taking public comment at this point. Did you have public comment? Mr. Kennedy?
Mark Kennedy, Prescott Road. The town of Kingston gives out 295 barrels. The town of Kensington gives out a 95 recycling and a 65 trash, but gives you the option to upgrade it for like $40 to a larger barrel. And that's $40 not annually, that's a one-time fee. So I'm not sure how, you have to check with Casella of how they're charging you for the barrels.
Right.
Or not.
But that's an easy way to, and I wouldn't mind doing that. But the argument of tonnage really doesn't hold any weight because the amount of trash a household produces is the amount of trash they're going to put into your landfill. It's just when are they going to put it in the barrel? They can't fit it in the barrel, they have to put it aside, they have to put it in next week.
Mhm.
You're going to get the trash. So the tonnage really, I think, is a neutral point. I would much rather have, as a resident, extra room in my trash barrel and not need it than need it and not have it. Nobody wants to put trash aside. Nobody wants the mouse problem. Nobody wants the rotting food problem. So I think going with the two larger carts is really the way to go. And that's what I see in surrounding communities. Now, if you wanted to go the route of Kensington, perfectly fine. Easy option. I pay my $40, a one-time fee of $40. I get my bigger can. Off I go. I think that's equitable and fair system for everybody involved. The argument that trash cans might be too big for people, that's a valid argument. It really is. So it's something that you need to explore, but I don't think if someone wants the larger barrel, I don't think they should be limited to not getting it.
Mark, just not to make sure nobody else is confused. We just talked about everybody getting a 9.
Yeah, no, 100%, that's what I heard. But I want to say there is validity to that argument, that that barrel may be too big for people. I'm just listing out the ways other communities have done it, just to give a bit of a background, but I truly appreciate you going with the larger cart. The way I look at it is now have 2 65-gallon trash cans that I put out, and they're pretty full every week. I'm going to have to adjust the way that I do my trash. I'm going to have to use that recycling bin more. Not happy about it, but I will make do. I will make do.
Compactor.
Thank you.
But you're welcome. I'm cutting back on the amount of things that I'm actually going to put in the trash. I'm going to put them in the recycling bin so I can make this system work. But I don't think I can make it work with a 65-gallon can. I just don't see that happening. And as I drive around Brentwood, I don't think I'm the minority here. I look at the trash that's being thrown out, and I think everybody's in the same, not everybody.
We're going to give you big cans.
Yes, I truly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Liz from your South Road. I'm totally opposed to the 2 big ones.
Totally what?
Totally opposed to 2 big ones for 2 reasons, 1 or 3. I have a very long driveway. We're older. Recycle if you have cardboard and stuff like that, newspaper, that's not that heavy, but garbage gets pretty heavy. The other thing I like about the 2 sizes, you can say to the kid, whoever's out the big one is for recycling, right? So that you have a differentiation, so you know which you're putting out. You know what I mean? Oh, the lids are different colors? Okay, I just saw 2 in the other room and they were both blue. Okay, I don't know. It's a lot. If you have my driveway is like
But you'll have an
330
option.
feet long.
I think you'll have an option to go down if you want to do that. That was the whole point. So we would make a procedure.
And how, can you only have that option at the very beginning? Or do you have that option once a year or something?
That's a good question.
Well, I think if we don't limit it, we're going to.
I would just say it would have to be at the beginning because they're not going to want to use bin back.
Like
and-
within 2 months or something like that, I mean, got to be pretty.
Well, I think they're going to want to order the carts.
Right.
We should know that sooner than later.
So if they're starting on August 15th, when are people going to get notified of, which one do you want kind of thing? Since it's,
Well, that's what we're trying to work out and get the mailing out.
so you've definitely decided just now, just a few minutes ago, to go with the 2 big ones. That's,
Yeah, but you can opt down.
You can.
Yeah, I
opt
know.
To get the small.
I know.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, there was one other thing I was going to say, and now it's just slipped my mind. I'll come back if I think of it again. Thank you.
Michelle Sudet. Hi, everybody. I personally think you should go with a smaller bin, and then people maybe would be forced to have less trash, but that's just my line of thinking. One other thing, or one thing you might want to consider is that a lot of people already have these types of bins. I drove down the street this morning on a Tuesday when it's trash day, and there's a lot of people who already have those manual pickup bins. I don't know if that would have an impact, if they can just use what they have.
They're gonna have to use the ones that are labeled with Casella. They have a barcode on them, so they know exactly what address they're at.
Really? Wow. Oh, okay.
But can I interrupt you, Michelle?
Sure.
But that does bring a good point is Tony had said we need to decide on how people are going to dispose of their old barrels.
Mhm.
So that should be part of the letter, a procedure that on our last manual pickup day that they put a note, they spray paint it orange, they do something that designates that the trash crew take those barrels with them. Back to you, Michelle.
Yes, you talked about a mailing or a postcard or something. Are you still thinking that these bins are going to be delivered in August?
So we're thinking.
I would maybe suggest that you have some way for everybody to tell you well in advance. Well, it's not well in advance because it's already July, what they want, instead of having any kind of swap out, because that's going to be a cluster. You could probably set up some sort of like the QR code or something, and somebody could just fill in a survey or whatever, something like that, but get that information before they order the carts and before they start passing them out. I guess that's pretty much my comments.
That would be my wish too, is that we have all these exceptions done before Casella makes the order.
Right. You mean,
You know, if
People
somebody
choose-
wants a smaller barrel that
Yeah.
they don't get delivered a big barrel and then have to call and say, hey, I don't want it anymore, that we try to get this done at the time of the order to make it less of a,
right, so we don't have
Inconvenience.
a big, much of a window, timeline window. here.
Should
hence
we,
why we're meeting today.
Yeah.
but does it make sense for us at all to push it another month out so that we have enough time and we're not rushing?
The only problem is the budget.
Yep,
Like,
I understand that.
it's,
Do we have enough time, is my question. It's already, we have a month. Is that enough time to educate people, to get
Like-
people?
another 2 weeks isn't gonna kill us on money, so, like, if we do September 1st instead of August 15th,
Can we do that?
September 1st is on a Monday. It's Labor Day, so it wouldn't be till trash pickup that week would be the 2nd and the 3rd. So,
I would suggest that we do that. Give us a little bit of breathing room. It's a big thing.
It is a big thing.
Well, I would say the beginning of September.
More natural break.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll vote for that. And I think that we should go, I think personally that we should negotiate that with Casella, because they're also partly to blame for this, so,
No, they're not.
well, I think that we should try and get them to not charge us for the extra 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Like on what grounds though? Like what?
Because I said so.
I don't think they're gonna. I don't think that's
How's
gonna
that?
work for them.
How's that?
But they're not gonna.
Well, we can try.
Sure.
It's a pretty big contract. I think that they should be able to give a little bit too.
Let's figure out what we're dealing with. I heard different numbers as well in terms of
Yeah.
what the discrepancy, was, so. What do we?
Letty, it doesn't hurt to ask, that's all.
Oh, yep,
Let's ask.
yep.
Mr. Well, it'll be part of the tipping fee, I'm sure, whatever goes into the dump. Right?
yes.
Yeah, so.
But it's not a direct, well, it's not a direct charge to you.
Did you have something, Mr. Hajar?
Jim Hazer, Mohawk Lane. You're definitely talking about the different size containers, which is good, but I think you also need to address in your policy statement, it came up, people saying they wanted an additional trash barrel.
Right.
And I think there will be people on my street, at least what I've seen walking, that even a 95 might not work. But anyways, I just think that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, we had that as one of the special exemptions to buy a trash barrel. So, yeah.
And I'm a little confused. I thought you said you needed a town meeting to implement this, but now you're talking about barrels in August. Did I?
So we need a town meeting to enact an ordinance that would have fines included.
Enforceability in terms of, sanction.
Now we're just coming up with a policy of elaborating on, as Bruce Stevens said, one was created in the 1880s when he first joined the
Okay.
boat
Back in the
board.
1900s.
Okay. Oh, no, I think you're clarifying that you can go from manual pickup to automated pickup without a warrant or without a town meeting.
Yes.
So the town meeting has nothing to do with that.
Right, no, the town
Okay.
meeting is actually incorporating it into an ordinance
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
has sanction.
Oh, good. And then maybe you kind of touched on this, Paul, just a minute ago, in that what is the total cost, like impact to the budget? Like, what is the total savings to the town on a yearly basis? I mean, I have a copy of the contract, and they definitely list out a yearly fee for manual waste and a yearly fee for manual recycle, and then they list a slightly lower fee for automated recycle and manual. And that's like, but that's an annual thing, right? So,
So you divide that by 12 and that's the
Okay.
price per month.
okay.
That's just the flat fee for their services.
Mhm.
In addition to that, we pay a tipping fee, which is
But
the
that's
price
just,
of how much trash we actually throw away per ton.
so how much do you think that we will save on a yearly basis by going to automated?
That's the number that's being in discrepancy. We
Because if
all
I take
came
the
up
diff-
with like 12,000 last week, a month, and
I
some,
I thought it was Tony who had come up with it.
Tony did.
was it 12,000?
thought
Tony
you
was
said
saying
15.
15.
Okay.
Tony said.
And then,
15.
then I
Like,
heard
You
it,
mean 15 total, maybe?
I don't know.
if you take the difference between the manual and automated for trash and recycle in the contract, it comes out to be $47,575 a year, which is just about $4,000 a month.
That's just for the first year. There's a 5% escalator, or at least 5%.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
I'm just-
and I didn't know, like, when you said about if it gets delayed, is it gonna impact this year's budget? But this year's budget, I think, I kind of looked, I think it said $628,529 total for recycle, trash, everything that was on that line.
So we budgeted for 6 months manual, 6 months automated. The rest of the money in that line is for tipping fees.
Okay,
The money it costs us to dispose of the waste at turnkey.
okay. So do
So
you,
as I'm looking at this, I think if you take the manual, which is $379,
Yep.
and then you take the manual of $150,
Yep.
it's, so that would, you'd have to.
$529,750.
For 6 and 6 for trash and 6 for recycling. That's what you're talking about. This one. That would have been what we budgeted.
Well, I was actually just talking about what the contract price would be.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yep, no, those are
you'd
the
have to
exact numbers.
You'd have to figure out the difference, but as I'm looking at it, I think, the numbers that Tony was giving us last week in terms of, that amount of 15 some odd thousand, that sounds way off.
Yeah,
Closer to
I see
4.
4,000 a month.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was thinking about the overall, because
And like I said, that's why I just don't know. I think you're smart to take your time and do this right. And I don't know what the impact is. I mean, if we have $628,529 budgeted for the whole thing this year, is another month really going to make that much of a
No, it makes
difference?
sense.
Okay,
Makes sense.
thank you so much.
So Liz Faria again. So my question is, if the automated is supposed to be saving the town money, how did the contract go up, whatever it was, 146%? I don't understand
So
that
I'll take that.
math.
So when we originally signed the contract, it was in 2020 or 2019. Inflation's gone through the roof since 2019. They were probably paying their drivers $12 an hour. You can't get somebody to work at Burger King for $12 an hour, never mind drive a CDL truck.
and I think we were locked in, like, we were.
We were locked in.
It wasn't, there was no escalator or anything. We got-
There was an escalator, but it was 2% or 3%. So that's the problem. It was just like the municipal employees' pay rates. Everything had to have that huge jump because the economy went haywire after COVID.
And that's really not what we're talking about right now anyway.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah, I just
I get
don't
it, but-
understand,
Well,
I just don't
I know,
understand the
but-
math. I just haven't looked at it enough, I guess.
Well, either way, it's an increase.
Yeah.
It's just less of an increase when you go to the automated. All right, so I think the idea is we're going to draft a procedure ASAP,
Yep.
which our town administrator is going to do in the first instance, and then send it out to us for review. And I'd like to have that, today is Tuesday, I guess no later than the end of the week, for us to.
Sorry, is this a policy that we will use until we have an ordinance?
Correct. That would be the idea.
Can we assess fees?
No.
It's-
The only fee we could access is for the extra barrel,
Why?
because you can't, that's what town council
meeting.
said, is you can't,
Could we, if we incur a fee because of somebody's violation, can we pass that on to the homeowner?
so I believe the way Tony described it, it was if the homeowner does something inappropriate, they give 1 or 2 warnings and then they don't pick up the trash.
Mhm.
Okay.
So they
There's
don't
no,
assess
like-
a fee, they
There's
just,
no like,
There's no sanction that we can do until we get an ordinance.
no, I was saying
enacted.
the town isn't gonna get sanctioned. That's what I wanted to make sure. that
Correct.
We weren't gonna get penalized.
correct.
Somebody mispaying.
So is, for everyone, if we had a draft by Friday to approve, is that, reasonable? And then we can find out if Casella
So I
will
think,
send it out, or if we send it out,
The ordinance?
no, the procedure.
the punch list for this week is draft what you just wrote, check with Casella if there's a price difference in the container size.
Yep.
And check with Casella if they will mail the mailing.
Yep.
I think that is the trash punch list for the week.
And if they will also not charge us for the difference between August 15th and September 1st.
And what, I'm sorry, and what the additional barrel cost
If any.
payable to Casella would be, so that could be part of the
Yes.
Yeah, if-
policy.
If any.
Yeah.
You mean the difference between 65 and
No,
95?
if you still want to add another trash barrel,
Oh.
it's going to cost you
Gotcha.
$250 a
Yeah,
year,
we
Yeah, I
want
think he
definitive
said
on that.
245, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
whatever it
But
is.
what, we just need to make sure.
We need that number
Yeah.
in writing.
Yep.
Um,
So the goal then would be to get this out, what, by,
Prove it on Tuesday and
prove it on
print,
Tuesday? and
start
then
printing Wednesday.
printing and getting it out. Gotcha.
Yep, get it out. Right.
Okay,
Love the smell of that.
fair enough. Anything else?
I guess I am hesitant to approve the larger barrel straight out the gate, just because I feel like they've done this a lot in a lot of small towns. And they have a lot of experience with having the vast majority of people being okay with the 65. I'm not saying some people aren't gonna want the 95, but I just.
So I think the big question is, what's the majority going to want? If the majority is going to want a smaller one, then we should go with the majority.
Hard to know what the majority wants.
Exactly.
But that's
And-
why I'm going off of what he said he's seen after doing this in small towns in New Hampshire for.
Well, what he sees is one thing, right? Because that's Casella telling you, okay? I think the majority of this is just guessing, but I would think that the majority of people would want the extra and not need it than not have it and need it,
Be
right?
standing on their trash container.
Right,
every week to
correct,
get it in there.
right, right. I'd rather have the extra and not need it, and sometimes you're gonna need more, so I'm okay with the.
But we do-
and If they want a smaller one, they can get a small.
So I guess the thing that I'm cognizant of is that really what this is limiting is what our tip fees are gonna be.
Correct.
So we are basically saying, yep, we're good with everyone having more trash.
So I can guarantee you that people are throwing away more than 95 gallons worth of trash every week. I've seen like 10 barrels out,
But
10
maybe if
bags
it
out by the
costs
side.
them something to do that, they might consider changing their behavior.
I'm just saying that limiting to 95 is going to limit our tipping fees now.
Mhm. I agree.
Limiting to 65 is going to be a culture shock.
I guess I I guess if it were up to me, I would start with a 65 and then reevaluate in a year.
But you can't,
Yeah.
because we would have to pay for barrels.
No, we don't
Yes.
have to pay for barrels. They own the barrels.
But we do.
No.
You tell them what we're getting, they're not changing them out mid-contract.
Correct.
This contract has no end.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
No,
It's only for 5 years.
we can end anytime.
Yes, with the so
there's-
many day
there's
notice.
no mid-contract, I guess is my point.
Well, yes, because the contract is for 5 years,
Right.
But-
We can't go
but there is
longer
a-
than 5 years.
a cancellation clause.
I guess the question.
Do you want to vote on it? Should we just vote on it? Do
already
we get
voted
the
on it.
6 or?
No, actually,
bigger-
we haven't. We did vote.
We
we
voted on it
didn't vote
last
it.
time,
But
Right.
so I guess
We're moving to reconsider.
I'm sticking with the 2 big ones.
Promise this will be the last one.
Okay.
Do
Heard that
we,
before.
do we know how many, Liz Faria again, do we know how many over 55s households are in Brentwood? Because we have a lot more than we
the
had
vast
in the
majority
past.
of households in Brentwood have like 2.1 or less people in them.
Right, so I think that that would affect the amount of trash you have. I think that, and there's a lot of people, at least at Three Ponds, that aren't here year round, so.
So
They-
they don't have to fill their barrel, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing. They can, get a bigger barrel, or they can opt for a lesser barrel and they don't have to
Right, but if-
necessarily fill it.
Think about it this way, Paul. If 60% of the people in town would be okay with the smaller barrel, then those people are essentially paying for y'all to throw away more trash.
No, I agreed. What Jim said, the majority, problem is we're past doing a survey.
Right.
Yep.
And I don't, where did you get the 2.1 per household number?
I think it was the last, what's the thing that happens in between the census? AC something something.
Yeah, that seems weird.
The only thing I know is the census.
Colloquially, that's the reason why the population hasn't changed in so many years, but there's a lot less kids at the school because there aren't as many people living in the houses that there used to be. These families that used to live here, they're still
Yeah,
here, just
there's some
parents.
truth to that statement. I
And
just
we've
don't know the
built a
number.
ton of 55-plus housing communities, like a ton.
But again, those people don't necessarily have to fill their barrel. Or
But
could
they
just get-
also are older and may not want to
And then they could get the lesser.
slap
barrel.
them around.
Yeah, and it's a tough, one, because
How
it's
about-
hard to know.
How about this? How about would you be willing to deliver the 65s, and if somebody wanted to switch to the 95, they could?
No,
Why?
because I think that's gonna cost us money.
Why?
Casella wants to order what we need, not,
Are you sure they have to order?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you confirm that as well? That's one of the punch list questions. All right, but for now, I'm gonna, unless it's real short, I want to cut it.
It is really, I mean, I think, I was here last time and I thought he said that we could choose the barrels that we wanted. Like, I
We
kind of
could,
agree with
but-
what she's
but
saying,
then I
that,
don't know that we can then continue.
No,
to
but
change out
I thought,
back and forth.
I thought what I'm hearing is that everybody's gonna get the 95 unless we tell you, no, we want the 65 and the 95.
Right.
And all I'm thinking is, I think what I'm hearing Letty say is, well, he's done this, and I agree. He stated, and I looked up a whole bunch of other communities, they do seem to all have 65, 95. And I thought and it seemed to be 95 because they do every other week for recycle,
That's right.
not because they want their people to throw away more stuff.
Right.
And I kind of agree with what Letty's saying, that, they're big honking containers, and I'm not sure a lot of the folks who don't need them want those. And if you're gonna go down this path of saying, hey, this is the default, if you want different, let us know by this date. And I
Right.
think that's okay. Then why don't you make the default 65, 95, like the vast majority, and even what Casella
go the other
recommended,
way.
and say, if you want bigger, you gotta let us know. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I think she might be onto something. And I also think that for future, Letty brought up about having separate bins in the yard for recycling of clean cardboard and things like that. I think that is something to reserve in the future. It's a really good idea, and I know that Newton did that. They had somebody come out and talk to them about how to actually make some money and reduce your recycling costs. So I think that is something you should really, after we get past this, look into, because I think that it would be a really good thing, and I think some people would support
Make
that. So
money on recycling.
exactly, lower, yeah. So I think that, again, she brought it up, and I think it's a really good idea. And I'll forward you the video that they gave to Newton, maybe having that same guy come and speak to Brentwood sometime in the future.
I mean, anecdotally, it's hard to know if, there are more people who would prefer the 65.
I totally agree.
It's-
I
so
believe
we're
me,
just-
Paul,
we're
we've been
making it-
joking.
we're just
When I
trying
go
to
on
make
my
it
walk,
fun.
I agree with what Andy
Try-
said.
yeah,
Like,
we're
there's a
just
lot of
trying to
people
make
that
it
even the 95 isn't going to work, and it's like half of my street is like that, so.
Having
Thank
said
you.
that, I'm going to cut the conversation. We probably do need a motion to reconsider, since we had the, vote last time. So if someone wants to make a motion to reconsider.
I'll make the motion to reconsider, since I voted against it the last time.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
And now I'll make a motion that we change to 95.95.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
All right, I think we have our punch list. What we're going to, we'll end the public meeting. We are going to go into non-public at this point for RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small a, dealing with personnel. And I'll take a motion to do that.
Moved.
Seconded.
All right, roll
Aye.
call vote,
Aye.
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 and I'm an aye. So
Can you
we'll
kill,
go into non-public.
can you kill life?